Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So for today's video I wanted to talk about how I managed to finance my own car at the age of 21. So as you guys may know, if you follow my channel or have read my blog, I passed my driving test last March, I believe. And then in July I managed to get my own car all through my own finances, and I just kind of thought it'd be a good video to kind of talk about, just because I know a lot of young people who watch my videos are my age and are either driving or beginning to drive. So it's kind of one of the topics I wanted to talk about, just to kind of give you guys some ideas on how you can finance your own car if you are able to. So where do I start? Okay, so when I passed my test, I knew I wanted to get a car, and I kind of knew I wanted to get it quite quickly because I didn't want to lose the whole sense of driving. So I live in London with my mum. My mum and before I passed my test, neither of us had a car, just because the convenience of public transport meant that we didn't need a car or anything like that. So it was a big decision for me whether to get a car or not, just because I live in London, and obviously lots of people would say that I wouldn't need a car in London. My main reason is because I have family who live outside of London who I see quite regularly, so it would cut down on those costs going down by train and stuff. So having my own car would be a lot easier in that sense. Also just because I think it would be really good for me to kind of practice all the time, instead of passing my test and not getting a car for like 2-3 years. So that was kind of my thought process on why I wanted to get a car. So yeah, as soon as I passed my test, I kind of like literally just researched a ton. I mean, I looked at buying new cars, I looked at buying second-hand cars, I looked at hiring cars, I looked at every different avenue possible. I looked at basically getting a new car with this company, and they pay for my insurance and I have to pay for the car and stuff, so it's kind of like an all-in-one package. And yeah, I literally spent hours upon hours researching. In the end I decided to go with I'd buy a second-hand car, just because obviously I'm a first-time driver, the likeliness of me crashing is very high, although I haven't crashed yet, touch wood. But yeah, I wanted to get a second-hand car just because if I did crash it, I know that it wouldn't be that bad than if it was a brand new car. Also the insurance would be a little bit cheaper, I think. I'm not too sure on that. But yeah, obviously the car I get is only going to be for like a few years, and then I'm going to get like a new car. So my next step was, how am I going to finance this? At the time I obviously had a job and I'd saved up a couple of hundred, not that much, because at that time I wasn't earning as much as I could. But I basically decided to get a car when I was transitioning from an apprenticeship to a full-time job. So obviously my wage would be increased, which is why I knew I could afford to get a car. So what I did was, first of all, I looked into bank loans. Bank loans may seem very scary if you aren't very good with money, or if that kind of thing kind of scares you. It kind of seemed quite scary to me, and I have to admit I didn't think of it at first, but then I kept getting these like letters through the door saying, oh, NatWest has these loans for young people aged 18 to 25. It's only like 18.9% APR or whatever it is. So yeah, I basically looked into that, researched a ton. So what I did was I managed to get a loan of £3,000. I knew that I didn't want to get a big loan just because I know that I wouldn't be able to pay it back off. So £3,000 seemed quite reasonable because I know I'd be able to pay that back off whatever job I had. And what I did was, because I'm already with NatWest anyway, I have my bank account and my savings account with them. Getting a loan with them was pretty easy. It was literally just an online form, and I basically got given it the next day, literally. I'm not even joking, it was so quick. So my term is, I asked for a £3,000 loan, and my repayment is over 5 years. So obviously I'm going to be able to pay that back. I think it's like £70 a month, and basically if I don't pay it back, then the overpriced. It's like 18.6% or something like that. The interest, that's the word I'm looking for. The interest is like 18 point something percent, so it's not that bad, it's quite low. So that's why I kind of went for it. So I had this money, this £3,000, and then I had about maybe like £250 to play with. So I was thinking, okay, so what can I do? The first thing that I thought about was maybe buying an old car on things like Trade Motors, I think it's called. You have things like Gumtree, eBay, you know, Facebook, things like that. But those kind of avenues are risky because obviously some vehicles that go on there aren't necessarily legal, which is why it's always good to check them in the kind of like registry thing where you can check if a car's being blacklisted or stolen, things like that. So I always recommend that. In the end, I went for a basically dealership, so second-hand dealership called Car Giant. It is massive in London. They have like loads and loads of cars, a massive like place in West London where you can go and see all the cars. And I chose my car on the website. I knew I wanted that car because before I chose my car I literally spent hours watching YouTube videos on best cars for new drivers. I knew I wanted a car with 5 doors, so it's like 2 at the front, 2 at the back, and then the boot, so the boot counts as a door, because I knew that I have nephews anyway, so if I ever take them around, it would just be easier to put car seats in and out the back without having to like open my door, push my chair forward, put the car seat in, get the kids in, that kind of thing. So I knew I wanted to have 5 doors. I knew I wanted it to be either black or white, so that kind of narrowed things down. And I knew I wanted it to be kind of like 2014 upwards. So those were kind of like my brackets. In terms of other things, mileage, I obviously wanted it to be quite low mileage, so kind of like 15,000 to like 25,000. I wanted it to be manual because I learnt in a manual car, and I'm not against automatic, but at the moment I think manual is the best thing because that's what I know. Maybe I'll go to automatic in a few years once I've used this car. So that's what I went for. So I started looking around on the internet. I searched like best cars for like new drivers, things like that, and the top ones I got were Hyundai i10, there was like a Toyota one, there was a Citroen C1 I think, other ones were like Volkswagen Polo, but that's a bit more expensive, a Mini, that's a bit more expensive, Volkswagen Golf, again that's a bit more expensive. I had things like the one of them was called an Up, but I can't remember what brand it was from. And then obviously my Kia Picanto. So yeah, I looked and I watched loads of videos. You can literally, if you search into YouTube, for example, like Mini 2014 car, it will come up with like loads of videos on like the inside of the car, what the car drives like, things like that. And I literally sat for hours and watched them all, and I was like, okay, well this one has 5 doors, I like this one, check. This one is manual, I like this one, check. This one has enough height for if I have tall passengers in the back, check. This one has comfy seats, things like that I checked. And I literally just made I had like a book, and I literally listed it all down and said, well, this car's got this car's got this. And then I kind of took it a bit further and I said, okay, well this car's going to cost me this much, but this car's going to cost me this much. So I'm going to have to pay this much this month for this car, but this much this month for this car. So things you're going to have to think about when you actually get a car in terms of payment, you're going to have to think about, if you buy a car on lease, you may have to pay that monthly. Insurance, obviously. Road tax is a yearly thing. Parking permits, if you need permits where you live. Those kind of things you have to think about. So you're looking at around about 3 or 4 payments a month for your car, or maybe like once a year or something. So my initial payments were going to be, if I hired a car, hire purchase, my insurance, and obviously to pay back this bank loan. So I was looking at about 3 payments a month. So I thought, well, if I'm gonna have to pay for my car monthly, I'm gonna need a car that's not that expensive. So my bracket was kind of from the 2,000 to 5,000 bracket, because I know I took out a £3,000 loan. So if I put down a £2,000 deposit, I'd only have about 3,000 or 2,000 left to pay. And that's what I did. The car I chose was a Kia Picanto. It was about 4,600. I put down a loan of £2,000, which meant I had like £2,600 left. But I had a bit on top of that because obviously the people that I loaned it from obviously add various charges. So it was just a bit more than that. And because I'm a young driver, I'm a first time driver, the people that I loaned it off, they could only give me a minimum of a 3 or 4 year loan payment. So that means I have to pay it off over like 3 years or 4 years, which is pretty good. It gives me enough time to pay it off. In things like this, you can pay them off quicker if you do raise the money. You can just call them up and say, oh, I've got £1,000 to pay this month, can you take it off? And they'll do that, and then your monthly payments will mean that you basically pay less. So my car I got for £4,600. I have to pay it back within like 3 or 4 years. I pay about £92 a month for it. And I think there's about a 19% interest on it, so if I don't pay it, which is quite low as well, which is pretty good. I mean, in terms of finance, my finance has been pretty good ever since I was little. I've never like had to pay an overpayment. I've never been late on my payments. I've always made sure that I have that money in the bank, and I knew from when I was first picking out the car that I would be able to pay this money back, because I earn enough that every month that I could put, as soon as I get paid, the money I need to pay for my car into my savings, and then it's there, and then when the payments are due, I just transfer it from my savings to my main account, and it just goes out automatically. So I didn't have to worry about that. I knew mentally I would be able to, and physically I'd be able to afford it. So the one I chose is a hire purchase. It's basically where you hire the car for like 3 years while you pay it off, and then at the end you can either pay a lump sum or you give it back to them. I think mine is I keep it, but I don't think I have to pay a lump sum because I paid a deposit. I'm not really sure on that. Maybe I do, but it won't be that high anyway. So that's what I'm doing. Yeah, so I sorted that all out. I went to Car Giant and did all the paperwork. I was there for like a day because it took so long to do everything. And then I got my car, and it was like crazy. When I picked my car up, because I hadn't driven for about 5 months, I stalled so much and it was so embarrassing. But yeah, that could be another story. So yeah, I got my car. So what you do is if you get your car from like a garage or something, you always need to have insurance before you drive away, obviously because you're not allowed to drive a car without insurance. So what they do is, at my particular place I got the car from, so Car Giant, you can get a 5-day insurance from Aviva, and this basically covers you to take the car home. It covers you for that 5 days, and then you look at your own insurance. Obviously insurance for me was going to be quite high because A, I'm only 21, B, I'm a first time driver, C, I live in London, and yeah, so all those factors would contribute to it. So my insurance is probably about 1,000... No, I think it's more than that. I think it's about 2,000 a year or something. So it's quite high. But what I did was I basically used comparethemarket.com and basically put my reg number in, put all my details in, and it comes up with like a list of like insurance prices. It comes up with also things like whether you get accidental breakdown with it, whether you get extra things with it. So like windscreen wiper cover, things like that. And I went for comprehensive, which means it covers everything. If my car catches fire, if someone hits me, if I hit someone else, those type of things. So my insurance, basically I chose the one with the black box. Basically there's a black box about this big in the front of my car. In the front of it it basically connects to like the engine, and when you drive it kind of keeps track of your miles, how fast you're going, if you're driving too fast, things like that. And it basically just means that if you are driving dangerously, it will track it on this like dashboard that I have. So by having the black box in my car, it actually means that I get cheaper insurance, but I have to drive more carefully, which is fine with me because I'm not very, excuse me, which is fine with me because I'm not a very like racy driver anyway. I'm a pretty good driver, so that didn't bother me. Also the black box company that I'm with, they don't have curfew restrictions, like driving, you can't drive after 10 p.m, things like that. So that's pretty good, obviously, because I'm a young person and I like to go out sometimes. So that was that. So yeah, I mean, now I kind of like, now I'm, how many months are we in? July, August, September, October. I've been driving for about 7 months, which is crazy. So I've had to pay off my car and everything else for 7 months. So every month I pay for my car. I then pay for my insurance, and I pay for my loan from NatWest. So what I do is, as soon as I get paid, I put the amount of money that I need to pay back for these into my savings account. And then I have notifications on my phone, so on the calendar app, of when they're due out. So some of them are due out on the 2nd of the month, some of them are due out on the 1st of the month. I don't get paid till the 4th of the month, so I kind of have to make sure that that money's there, because obviously I can't pay for it. So what I do is I have like a notification on my phone to say, your car payment comes out in 2 days. Transfer the money. So I'll transfer the money back from my savings to my main account, and then on that day it literally goes out. I don't have to do anything. It is just a direct debit. They're all direct debits and they just go out. So all I have to do is make sure that the money's in there, and then I don't have to worry about anything else. Obviously, as time goes on and the more you pay, the less you have to pay. So what I'm hopefully going to try and do is, once I've been to Hong Kong in May, I'm going to try and save money up so I can like pay off my car or pay off my loan from NatWest. Then I don't have to worry about that, and it's one less payment I have to make a month. So that's something I'm trying to do, but at the moment I'm not in the correct financial position to do that. But yeah, I mean, as a 21-year-old and kind of like paying for my own car, it is stressful sometimes when maybe I've had like a month where I've had to pay a lot, so I don't have enough money left. But I always make sure that I have that money to pay for my car. If it means I've got less money to go and do fun things, then that's it, because that's the sacrifice I made. I knew as soon as I wanted to get a car, I'd have to have the money, or there's no point in getting a car. I did think about buying the car in full, so getting a cheaper car, one that's like £2,000-3,000, and buying it in full, but that didn't really cross my mind at the moment. I kind of wanted to buy from a good place, just because I knew I was a first time buyer. I didn't really know much about where to buy your cars from and stuff, and yeah, and I knew that if I bought a car from a dealership, so like so from the dealership themselves, so like from Kia or from Volkswagen, or from Citroen, it would be a lot higher. So I'd be looking at repayments of about £100 plus for my car every month, plus insurance, plus my my bank loan as well. So that's why I kind of went for second hand, because the repayments would be shorter, because obviously the car's worth less. So that's something to consider if you guys are considering that. I'm trying to think what else, because I feel like there's so much I've spoken about, but there's so much more I haven't spoken about. So I'm just trying to think, because I know that there was other things. Yes, the other thing I want to say is, obviously, like with cars and stuff, things can happen to the car. So you have things like your tyre bursts or your battery goes, and things like that, obviously you have to pay for. So I'm trying to put money into my savings for like rainy days, if my tyre bursts, if my battery dies, for example, things like that. So for example, the other week my battery was dead on my car and I had to pay £86. Luckily I had that in my savings, so you know, I had the money to pay it. But if you guys didn't have the money to pay, it could be quite tricky. So just kind of think of that in mind as well, because obviously cars are things that can run down sometimes. Obviously you have your MOT every year, that costs quite a lot, and if you need any repairs, that costs quite a lot. So try and think of that when you are saving money. Put money aside for a rainy day if your car kind of needs those kind of things. I mean, I think that's everything, because I've kind of gone from the process of passing my test, looking at cars, and then actually having my car. So if you guys have anything else you want to add, your experiences, just write them in the comments. If you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to help and answer through my experiences. But yeah, I mean, I'm really happy I have a car. It is really helpful sometimes. I have to admit, I don't drive it that much. I'm still quite nervous driving it, but I do drive it as well as can be. So I'm getting the confidence built up so I can drive it more and more. So yeah, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next week's video. Bye!